Ethan, did you just say my name? Ryan Bennett's voice came from the apartment doorway, calm enough to be terrifying, and Ethan Parker stopped breathing. For one impossible second, the whole room seemed to forget how sound worked. The refrigerator hummed. A car horn echoed somewhere 12 floors below. Ethan sat frozen on the couch, one earbud still in place, his phone tilted in his hand, and every thought in his head collided at once. No, absolutely not. This was not happening. Ryan was supposed to be gone until midnight. Ryan was supposed to be across town. Ryan was supposed to be anywhere except standing 10 feet away in a dark blue jacket, looking at Ethan with those steady gray eyes that always made coherent thought feel like an optional feature. Ethan swallowed. No, Ryan lifted one eyebrow. Ethan immediately regretted using the least convincing word in the English language. I mean, yes, technically I said Ryan, but Ryan is a common name. Extremely common. There are probably thousands of Ryans in this city. Ryan closed the door behind him. Click. Somehow that tiny sound made everything worse. You know another Ryan? Ethan stared at him. Potentially. Do you? This feels weirdly aggressive for a census question. Ryan's mouth twitched. Not a smile. Almost worse. Ethan's brain, apparently committed to destroying him, supplied the completely useless observation that Ryan looked unfairly good after being outside in the cold. Dark hair slightly messy from the wind, cheeks faintly pink, jacket unzipped over the gray sweater Ethan had secretly decided was his favorite 3 weeks ago. Not that Ethan had favorite Ryan sweaters. That would be insane. He had categories. Entirely different. Ryan took one step farther into the apartment. Ethan stood so quickly his knee bumped the coffee table. Ow. You okay? Ryan asked instantly. Of course he did. That was the problem. Ryan was always doing that. Asking if Ethan was okay. Saving the last cinnamon roll because Ethan liked them. Remembering that Ethan hated pulp and orange juice. Texting him before big meetings with things like "you've got this," which should have been illegal coming from someone who looked like that and sounded like that, and had absolutely no idea what those 3 words did to Ethan's nervous system. Ethan rubbed his knee and tried to reclaim the last surviving pieces of his dignity. Perfect. Never better. Ryan glanced at the phone still clenched in Ethan's hand. Ethan followed his gaze and nearly passed away on principle. On the screen was a paused video Ryan had sent earlier that afternoon. Nothing dramatic, just Ryan showing off the new climbing wall at the gym where he worked, smiling at the camera and saying, "You should come try it sometime." Completely innocent. Totally normal. Except Ethan had replayed it enough times to qualify as research. Ryan looked back at him. Silence stretched between them. Ethan considered moving to Oregon. Maybe Vermont. Somewhere with mountains and no roommates. "I thought you were staying out tonight," Ethan said, which was somehow the first useful sentence he had managed. Plans changed. Clearly. Another pause. Ryan leaned one shoulder against the wall, studying him in that quiet way that always made Ethan feel like Ryan noticed more than he said. "So," Ryan said softly, "which Ryan were you talking about?" Ethan's soul left his body, filed paperwork, and moved overseas. Ryan waited. Ethan did not answer, mostly because every possible answer seemed designed to make his life worse. He could lie, which had already gone beautifully. He could tell the truth, which sounded medically inadvisable. Or he could simply open the nearest window and begin a new life as a mysterious man who vanished from a perfectly respectable apartment on a Tuesday night. "You know what?" Ethan said finally. "I think I am going to bed." Ryan glanced toward the hallway. "It is 8:40. I have become passionate about sleep." "Since when?" "Since approximately 30 seconds ago." Ryan smiled then, small and crooked, and Ethan hated how immediately his heart reacted. That smile was exactly why living with Ryan had become a daily exercise in pretending. 12 hours earlier, Ethan had been standing in the same kitchen, trying very hard not to notice Ryan making breakfast. This should not have been difficult. People made breakfast. Every day, civilization had somehow survived it. Unfortunately, Ryan Bennett made breakfast while wearing an old college sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed to his elbows, quietly humming along with the radio, and somehow that transformed scrambled eggs into an emotional crisis. "Coffee," Ryan had said, sliding a mug across the counter. Ethan had looked down. 1 teaspoon of sugar. A little cream. "Exactly right. You remembered." Ryan gave him a strange look. "I make it for you 3 times a week." "That does not mean you have to remember." It would be concerning if I forgot every time. Ethan took the mug before his hands could become noticeably useless. Still, thanks. Ryan turned back to the stove. Big meeting today, right? Ethan stared at him. How do you know that? You told me Sunday. Of course he remembered that too. Ethan had mentioned the meeting once, somewhere between complaining about laundry and arguing that pineapple absolutely belonged on pizza. Ryan remembered everything Ethan wished he would forget and everything Ethan secretly hoped he would notice. It was deeply inconvenient. You will do fine, Ryan said. For ordinary words. Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. Yes, obviously. I am famously calm under pressure. Ryan looked over his shoulder. Ethan immediately bumped his hip against the counter. Ryan nodded toward him. Clearly, that was the counter attacking me. I saw. Then you are a witness. Ryan laughed, and Ethan had to look down at his coffee because there were limits to what one person should be expected to survive before 9 in the morning. Later, just before Ethan left, Ryan stopped him near the front door. Hold on. Ethan froze. Ryan reached toward his collar and straightened the edge of Ethan's shirt where it had folded beneath his jacket. It took maybe 2 seconds. 3 at most. Ethan experienced all 3 like separate calendar years. There, Ryan said. Better. Ethan managed a noise that could generously be described as gratitude. Ryan stepped back. Good luck. Ethan left the apartment convinced he had imagined the warmth in Ryan's expression. He had been doing that for months, explaining everything away. The saved cinnamon roll was roommate kindness. The late-night conversations were friendship. The messages asking whether Ethan got home safely were normal. The way Ryan always seemed to find Ethan first in a crowded room meant nothing. It had to mean nothing, because the alternative was dangerous. Hope had a way of turning harmless details into evidence. So Ethan had made himself a rule. Ryan was kind. Ryan was his friend. Ryan did not feel anything more. By noon, Ethan almost believed it. Then Ryan sent him a message. How did the meeting go? Ethan stared at the screen for a full minute before typing, survived. Barely. Ryan replied almost immediately. Knew you would. Ethan smiled despite himself. Then another message appeared. Meeting Claire tonight, so I might be home late. Ethan's smile disappeared before he could stop it. Claire. He had heard that name once before. Pretty Claire. Funny Claire. Claire who apparently deserved an evening with Ryan Bennett. Ethan typed, have fun, deleted it, typed, cool, deleted that too. Then finally sent, sounds good. 2 words. Perfectly normal. Completely casual. Absolutely nothing like the sudden heaviness sitting in his chest. Across the apartment 12 hours later, Ryan was still waiting for an answer about the mysterious other Ryan. Ethan looked at him and remembered that message. Claire. Right. Of course. Whatever Ethan had accidentally revealed tonight did not change reality. Ryan had plans with someone else. Ethan forced a smile. Nobody important, he said. Ryan's expression changed so slightly Ethan almost missed it. The smile disappeared. His eyes dropped for half a second. Right, Ryan said quietly. Nobody important. And for reasons Ethan could not understand, Ryan suddenly looked disappointed. Ethan should have let the conversation die there. A smarter person would have nodded, gone to bed, and spent the next several decades pretending the last 5 minutes had never happened. Ethan, unfortunately, had never been accused of making excellent decisions under emotional pressure. So, he said, because silence had started feeling dangerous, how was Claire? Ryan looked at him. Claire, your plans tonight. Ethan tried to sound casual. He failed so completely that even he could hear it. You said you were meeting her. Something shifted in Ryan's face. Not surprise exactly. More like understanding arriving one piece at a time. It was fine. Great. Very exciting. Fantastic. We had tacos. Love that for you. Ryan folded his arms. Do you? Ethan stared at him. Do I what? Love that for me. There it was again, that irritatingly calm voice Ryan used whenever Ethan felt one sentence away from spontaneously turning into smoke. Sure, Ethan said. Why would I not? Ryan studied him. Ethan hated being studied. Especially by Ryan. Especially when Ryan looked like he could see every thought Ethan was desperately trying to bury under sarcasm. You got quiet when I mentioned her earlier, Ryan said. I was working. You sent me 2 words. That is still communication. You usually send me 12 messages and at least 1 unnecessary picture. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. Ryan continued. Last week you sent me a photograph of a pigeon wearing a French fry like a hat. That was important. Apparently. Ethan crossed his arms, immediately realized he was mirroring Ryan, and dropped them again. I was busy. Okay. Ryan said it gently, which somehow made Ethan more defensive. And even if I was quiet, maybe I just did not want to interrupt your date. Ryan blinked once. There. Ethan heard it too late. Date. The word hung between them like a sign Ethan had personally installed over his own head. Ryan's eyebrows lifted. My date. Ethan's stomach dropped. Your meeting. You called it a date. I use date as a general calendar term. Nobody does that. People absolutely do. Ethan. Ryan. For 1 second, neither of them moved. Then Ryan looked away, but not before Ethan caught the beginning of a smile. You thought Claire and I were on a date. Ethan considered denying it. Then he remembered how the first denial had gone. I thought it was possible. Why? Because you said you were meeting her at night. People meet at night. You changed shirts. Ryan looked down at himself. Ethan wished the floor would develop a trapdoor. I noticed because you were wearing the green one earlier. Ethan rushed on. Not because I monitor your clothing. I do not keep records. There is no spreadsheet. Ryan's smile widened. Good to know. This conversation is becoming hostile. You started it. I regret everything. Ryan laughed softly, and the sound hit Ethan with the same familiar warmth he had been trying not to name for months. Then Ryan's expression softened. Claire is my cousin. Ethan went still. Your cousin? My mother's sister's daughter. I understand how cousins work. I was not sure anymore. Ethan stared at him while his brain slowly reorganized the entire evening. Pretty Claire. Funny Claire. Claire who deserved an evening with Ryan Bennett. Claire who was apparently related to him. Excellent. Ethan had spent half the day jealous of a family member. There were new levels of humiliation being discovered tonight, and apparently he was an explorer. Why have I never heard you say she is your cousin? Ethan asked. You have. I absolutely have not. At Thanksgiving, I was eating pie. You said, and I quote, nobody should be expected to process family trees while holding pecan pie. Ethan covered his face with both hands. I stand by that. Ryan laughed again. Ethan lowered his hands just enough to look at him. So you were not on a date? No, the answer came quickly. Too quickly. Ethan felt an embarrassing flicker of relief. Ryan noticed. Of course he noticed. His eyes narrowed slightly, not suspiciously, but thoughtfully. Would it have bothered you? Ryan asked. Ethan's heart stumbled. Would what have bothered me? If it had been a date. The apartment suddenly felt very small. Ethan could hear the air conditioner clicking on. He could hear Ryan breathing. He could hear his own pulse making terrible decisions. No, Ethan said. Ryan held his gaze. Right. Just one word, but something in it landed strangely. Quietly. Disappointed again. Ethan looked away first. I should probably sleep. At 9 now. My passion for sleep has deepened. Ryan stepped aside, giving him room to pass. Ethan made it 2 steps before Ryan spoke again. For what it is worth, I would have told you if I were going on a date. Ethan stopped. He turned slowly. Why? Ryan's expression became unreadable. I thought you would want to know. Ethan waited for more. Ryan did not give him any. And somehow that was worse, because for the first time in months, Ethan's carefully constructed explanation for everything Ryan did no longer felt quite as solid as it had that morning. Ethan slept terribly. That was not Ryan's fault, technically. Ryan had not followed him into his room and personally instructed his brain to replay one sentence for 6 straight hours. I would have told you if I were going on a date. Simple words. Harmless words. Completely normal roommate words. If Ethan ignored the fact that normal roommates did not usually sound disappointed when discussing imaginary dates. By morning, Ethan had developed 3 possible explanations. 1. Ryan was simply considerate. 2. Ryan enjoyed confusing him for sport. 3. Ethan had finally lost his mind and should avoid making major financial decisions until further notice. He chose explanation 1 because it was safest. Then he walked into the kitchen and found Ryan standing by the counter with 2 mugs of coffee. Morning, Ryan said. Ethan stopped. You made mine. I usually do. Right. Normal. Safe. Roommate behavior. Ethan took the mug. Their fingers brushed for half a second, and his carefully constructed theory immediately collapsed like cheap patio furniture. Thanks. You are welcome. Ryan watched him over the rim of his mug. Ethan suddenly became extremely interested in the weather outside. Gray sky, light traffic, one guy walking a golden retriever. Beautiful. Fascinating. Anything was better than eye contact. About last night, Ryan began. Ethan nearly inhaled coffee. No, Ryan blinked. No. I think last night should be archived. Archived. Sealed. Labeled. Placed in a government warehouse. Ryan's mouth twitched. That seems dramatic. I am protecting both of us. From a conversation? From history. Ryan set his mug down. Ethan. That tone again. Soft. Patient. Dangerous. Ethan stared into his coffee. I said something embarrassing. You heard it. We survived. America continues. I think that is enough. Ryan went quiet. For one hopeful second, Ethan thought the subject had died peacefully. Then Ryan said, You were talking about me. Ethan closed his eyes. Of course. Naturally. Why would the universe let him have breakfast? We established that Ryan is a common name. You were watching my video. Ethan opened his eyes. That is circumstantial evidence. And you said my name. Still weak. You also told me nobody important when I asked who you meant. Ethan pointed at him, which proves there was somebody. Ryan looked almost impressed. That is not the defense you think it is. Ethan put his mug down before he accidentally launched it through sheer embarrassment. Fine. Maybe I was thinking about you. Silence. Ryan did not laugh. He did not look uncomfortable. If anything, he became very still. Okay, he said. Ethan stared. Okay. Okay. That is all. What would you like me to say? I do not know. Something normal. Something that makes this less horrifying. Ryan leaned back against the counter. I do not think it is horrifying. Ethan's thoughts stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Ryan's expression was calm, but there was color rising faintly near his ears. Ethan noticed because apparently his brain had chosen this moment to become a professional investigator. You do not, he asked. No, Ryan looked at him directly. I was surprised. That is worse. It is not. It feels worse. Ethan. What? You are panicking. I am speaking at a reasonable speed. You just used 11 sentences without breathing. Ethan inhaled deeply out of spite. Ryan smiled. And there it was again, that warmth Ethan never knew what to do with. I am not making fun of you, Ryan said. And I am not upset. Ethan searched his face for any hint of discomfort. There was none. That should have made him feel better. Instead, it created a new and potentially more dangerous question. Why not? Ryan's smile faded slightly. For a moment, he looked as if he might actually answer. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced down. I have to leave in 10 minutes. Ethan almost laughed at the cruelty of timing. Of course you do. Ryan picked up his phone, then paused. We should finish this conversation later. Ethan's stomach tightened. That sounds threatening. It is not. You say that now. Ryan grabbed his jacket from the chair. At the doorway, he turned back. Ethan. Yes. Ryan hesitated. Just long enough to matter. Do not spend all day convincing yourself that I am uncomfortable around you. Ethan forgot how to respond. Ryan opened the door. Because I am not. Then he left, and Ethan stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the closed door and wondering why the tips of Ryan Bennett's ears had been bright red the entire time. By lunchtime, Ethan had failed at every normal task available to an adult human being. He opened the same email 4 times without reading it, poured cereal into a bowl, and forgot the milk, and spent 7 full minutes staring at the message Ryan had sent at 11:30. We should talk tonight. That was it. 4 words. No emoji. No explanation. No mercy. Ethan placed his phone face down on the table, immediately flipped it over again, and reread the message as if a hidden paragraph might appear through determination alone. It did not. Fantastic, he muttered. Very healthy. Extremely calming. He tried to work from home, but every sound in the hallway made him look toward the front door. By 3, he had decided Ryan was going to ask him to move out. By 4, he had revised the theory. Ryan would move out himself because he was kind and would probably say something unbearable like, I think you deserve space. By 5, Ethan had mentally divided the kitchen appliances. Ryan could have the toaster. Ethan had never trusted it. The coffee maker was non-negotiable. At 6:12, the lock finally turned. Ethan stood so fast his laptop nearly slid off his knees. Ryan stepped inside wearing his dark work jacket, looking tired but otherwise completely normal. Then Ethan saw the suitcase. It rolled in behind him, black, medium-sized, unmistakable. Ethan's stomach dropped. Of course there was a suitcase. The universe had apparently decided subtlety was no longer necessary. Ryan closed the door and looked up. Hey. Ethan stared at the suitcase. Hey. Ryan followed his gaze. I can explain. That sentence was not helpful. You do not have to. I really do. No, seriously. Ethan stood, setting the laptop aside with far more care than his nervous system deserved. I understand. Ryan frowned. You do? Yes. Okay. Okay. Silence. Ethan could feel himself becoming annoyed by Ryan's calmness, which was unfair, but fairness had left the apartment several hours ago. Ryan took off his jacket. So we are good. Ethan laughed once. It came out strange. Sure. Ryan stopped. That did not sound like sure. It was a complicated sure. Ethan. Ryan. What do you think is happening? Ethan looked at the suitcase again. Something in his chest tightened. He had spent all day preparing for this, but preparation apparently meant nothing once the actual moment arrived. You are leaving. Ryan blinked. What? You brought a suitcase. Yes. And you said we needed to talk. Yes. Those are not exactly ingredients for a cheerful evening. Ryan stared at him for 2 seconds, then looked at the suitcase, then back at Ethan. You think this is mine? Ethan crossed his arms. Is it not? Ryan's expression changed. Confusion first, then realization, then something dangerously close to amusement. Ethan, do not laugh. I am not laughing. Your face is considering it. Ryan pressed his lips together. This is Claire's suitcase. Ethan said nothing. Ryan continued carefully. Her airline lost one of her bags when she flew in last week. It was delivered to my office because she used the company address while she was visiting downtown. I told her I would bring it over tomorrow. Ethan stared at the suitcase as if it had personally betrayed him. Claire's. Claire's. Your cousin. Still my cousin. Ethan closed his eyes. There it was. A new floor beneath rock bottom. I need everyone in your family to stop creating problems for me. Ryan laughed then, quiet and helpless, and Ethan pointed at him. I specifically asked you not to. I am sorry. You are not. A little. Ethan turned away, mostly because relief had arrived so quickly it was embarrassing in a completely different direction. Ryan was not leaving. The apartment was staying the same. Ryan was staying. That should have been enough. Instead, Ethan heard himself say, I thought you wanted to move out because of me. Ryan stopped laughing. The room changed. Ethan wished immediately that he could pull the sentence back. Ryan stepped closer, not enough to crowd him, just enough that Ethan had to decide whether to look at him. Because of last night? Ryan asked. Ethan nodded once. And this morning? And everything? Ryan was quiet. Ethan took a breath. I know you said you were not uncomfortable, but people say things to be nice. You are nice. Annoyingly nice. So I thought maybe you were trying to make this easier before quietly escaping with your furniture. Ryan's face softened. Ethan, I know. I am spiraling. A little. Thank you. Look at me. Ethan did. Ryan's voice dropped, steady and gentle. I am not moving out. Ethan held his gaze. Okay. And I am not avoiding you. Okay. Ryan hesitated. And I did mean what I said this morning. Ethan's pulse picked up. Which part? The part where I told you I was not uncomfortable. Ryan looked nervous now. Actually nervous. It was so unfamiliar that Ethan almost forgot his own panic. The truth is, Ryan said, I think I have been waiting for you to say something for a long time. Ethan forgot the suitcase. Forgot Claire. Forgot every carefully rehearsed disaster scenario from the last 10 hours. Waiting for me to say what? Ryan took a slow breath. Something honest. For several seconds, Ethan forgot every honest sentence he had ever known. Ryan stood only a few feet away, one hand resting on the handle of Claire's suitcase, looking more uncertain than Ethan had ever seen him. That somehow made everything worse. Ryan was supposed to be the calm one. Ryan remembered appointments, folded fitted sheets correctly, and somehow knew when the milk was about to expire without checking the date. Ethan was the one who panicked because a restaurant menu had too many options. This arrangement had rules. Something honest, Ethan repeated. Ryan nodded. Yes. Ethan looked toward the kitchen, as if the coffee maker might provide legal counsel. Nothing. Completely useless appliance. That feels dangerously broad. Then, start small. Small honesty. Exactly. Ethan swallowed. I hate your green sweater. Ryan blinked. You complimented it last week. That was a lie. It makes you look too good. and I find that personally inconvenient. Silence. Then Ryan laughed. Not loudly. Just one surprised breath of laughter that softened his entire face. Ethan covered his eyes. There. Honesty was a mistake. We tried it. Science has spoken. Ethan, I am moving to another country. You thought I was moving out 5 minutes ago. Circumstances change. Ryan stepped away from the suitcase and sat on the edge of the couch. He did not reach for Ethan. He did not pressure him. He simply waited. That patience was almost unfair. Ethan lowered his hands. Ryan looked nervous again, but he stayed. Okay, Ethan said quietly. You want honest? I do. Ethan took a breath. Then another. I like you. Ryan did not move. Ethan rushed forward before courage disappeared. Not just as my roommate. Not just because you make coffee correctly or remember ridiculous things I tell you or save me the corner piece when we order brownies. I like hearing your key in the door because it means you are home. I notice when you are tired. I notice when you are pretending you are not tired. I know you always leave the kitchen light on when I work late because you think coming home to a dark apartment feels depressing. Ryan's expression changed with every sentence. Softer. Quieter. Ethan's voice lowered. And when you said you were meeting Claire, I was jealous. Which is humiliating, considering she is related to you. Ryan almost smiled. A little. Do not ruin my emotional breakthrough. Sorry. Ethan looked down at his hands. I kept telling myself none of it mattered because you were just being nice. And maybe I could keep living here and eventually stop feeling this way. He laughed once, without humor. That plan has not been especially successful. Ryan was silent long enough that Ethan's courage began collapsing. You do not have to say anything, Ethan added quickly. Actually, maybe that would be ideal. We could pretend I developed temporary honesty poisoning. Ethan, something in Ryan's voice stopped him. Ethan looked up. Ryan leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. Do you remember your first week here? Mostly. I assembled my bookshelf backward. You also worked late 3 nights in a row. I was trying to impress my new boss. Every night, you came home and apologized because you thought you were waking me. Ethan frowned. You were always on the couch. Ryan nodded. I was waiting for you. Ethan stared at him. Ryan continued before Ethan could speak. The coffee was not accidental. Neither were the dinners. I changed 2 shifts last month because you mentioned you hated eating alone after long workdays. Ethan's heart beat harder. Ryan. And Claire has been making fun of me for months because apparently I talk about my roommate too much. Ethan sat completely still. The apartment suddenly felt quieter than before, but not empty. Ryan met his eyes. You thought I was leaving because you liked me. He paused. Ethan, I have been trying very hard not to tell you that I like you too. For 1 full second, Ethan was certain he had misunderstood the English language. Then 2 seconds passed, and Ryan was still looking at him with the same nervous expression, which meant this was either real or Ethan had finally developed an extremely detailed stress hallucination. You like me? Ethan said. Ryan nodded. Yes. Ethan stared. Me? Still yes. On purpose. Ryan laughed softly. As opposed to what? I do not know. A clerical error. Ryan shook his head, but he was smiling now. Ethan was not. Not yet. His mind was too busy reopening every memory from the last 8 months and attaching warning labels to all of them. The coffee, the dinners, the kitchen light, the saved cinnamon rolls. Ryan waiting on the couch when Ethan worked late. Every small kindness Ethan had carefully filed under friendship was suddenly being dragged into a completely different category. How long? Ethan asked. Ryan's smile faded. What? How long have you liked me? Ryan looked toward the window. That hesitation answered more than Ethan expected. Ryan. A while. That is not a time measurement. Ethan. 3 weeks. 3 months. Ryan exhaled. Before you moved in. Ethan went completely still. Excuse me. Ryan rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. We met twice before you signed the lease. Remember? Ethan did remember. The first time had been at a mutual friend's game night. Ryan had spent 20 minutes helping Ethan understand rules everyone else apparently learned at birth. The second time had been at a coffee shop when their friend Marcus mentioned Ryan needed a roommate. Ethan had assumed the apartment arrangement happened because rent in the city was ridiculous and they both needed somewhere affordable. You already liked me? Ethan asked. I thought you were funny. That is how people describe a comedy podcast, not a romantic interest. I thought you were funny, smart, and impossible to ignore. Ethan's heart did something deeply unprofessional. That is worse. Why? Because now I have to reevaluate 8 months of my life. Ryan's expression softened. I did not plan any of this. You chose me as your roommate. Marcus gave me 3 names. Ethan blinked. 3. Yes. And you picked mine? Ryan looked embarrassed. Actual Ryan Bennett embarrassment. Ethan had not known such a thing existed. Yes. Ethan sat down slowly in the chair across from him. You picked me. I knew you. A little. You liked me. Yes. And then you let me spend 8 months believing you were just unusually committed to breakfast. Ryan covered his face for a moment. When you phrase it like that, I sound ridiculous. Good. Welcome to my side of the apartment. Ryan lowered his hands, smiling despite himself. Ethan should have felt victorious. Instead, something sharper rose beneath the relief. Why did you never tell me? Ryan's smile disappeared. Ethan heard the change in his own voice and tried to soften it. But the question had been waiting too long. Seriously, if you felt this way before I even moved in, why did you let me think I imagined everything? Ryan leaned back. Because I did not know how you felt. Neither did I. Exactly. No, not exactly. I spent months telling myself I was being stupid because you acted like everything was normal. Ryan looked down at his hands. I was trying to keep things normal. Why? A long silence followed. This time Ethan did not fill it with a joke. Ryan's fingers tightened together. Because I had something good, he said quietly. You were here. We got along. You trusted me. I did not want to gamble all of that on a feeling I could not prove was mutual. Ethan's frustration softened, but it did not disappear. So you decided for both of us. Ryan looked up. I decided not to make you uncomfortable in your own home. That landed differently. Ethan looked away. The apartment was still the same place it had been yesterday. Same couch. Same coffee table. Same ridiculous framed print Ryan insisted was modern art, and Ethan insisted looked like a spilled jar of mustard. But suddenly every inch of it felt full of things neither of them had said. I thought you were fearless, Ethan admitted. Ryan gave a quiet laugh. That was your first mistake. Ethan looked back at him. Ryan's expression was open now in a way Ethan had never seen before. No calm mask. No easy confidence. Just uncertainty. I was scared, Ryan said. I liked you before you moved in. Then I liked you more after you moved in. That made it harder, not easier. Ethan swallowed. Because you could lose more. Ryan nodded. Exactly. And just like that, the image Ethan had built of Ryan as the steady one cracked open. Underneath, it was someone who had been standing on the other side of the same fear the entire time. For a while, neither of them said anything. Ethan had expected the truth to feel dramatic, maybe loud, maybe impossible to ignore. Instead, it settled over the apartment quietly, changing the shape of everything without moving a single object. Ryan sat across from him with his hands loosely clasped, no longer looking like the person who always knew what to do. That helped more than Ethan wanted to admit. So we were both terrified, Ethan said. Ryan gave a small smile. Apparently. That is deeply embarrassing. For both of us. Good. I refuse to carry this alone. Ryan laughed, and some of the tension finally loosened. Ethan looked down at his hands. I kept thinking you were too calm to ever feel like this. I am calm when the smoke detector goes off because someone burns toast. That happened once. 3 times. The toaster is aggressive. You said that about the counter yesterday. Our apartment has a pattern of hostility. Ryan shook his head, still smiling, but when Ethan looked up again, the smile had faded into something softer. I was not calm about you, Ryan said. Ethan's chest tightened. The words were simple. That made them worse. Or better. He was not sure yet. What happened before? Ethan asked. Ryan's expression changed. Before what? You said you were afraid of losing something good. That sounded specific. Ryan looked toward the window. Outside, the city lights reflected faintly against the glass. I had a close friend in college, he said. We got along really well. I thought there might be something more between us. I said something. Ethan stayed quiet. Ryan continued. He did not feel the same way. That part was fine. Awkward, but fine. What was harder was everything afterward. He started avoiding me because he thought every conversation had some hidden meaning. Eventually, we stopped being friends. Ethan felt the last of his frustration shift into understanding. So when you started liking me, I remembered how quickly one honest conversation changed everything. Ryan gave a small, almost embarrassed shrug. Then you moved in, and somehow this place started feeling like home. I did not want to be the reason that disappeared. Ethan looked around the apartment. The kitchen light was warm. Claire's suitcase still sat by the door like an accidental monument to bad assumptions. 2 coffee mugs waited on the counter. Normal things. Ordinary things. Somehow they carried more weight now. Ethan stood. Ryan immediately looked up. Are you okay? Yes. You look nervous. I am always nervous. I have simply developed better branding. Ryan smiled. Ethan walked over and stopped beside the couch. For once, he did not know what joke to use next. So he let the silence stay. Ryan did too. That was the strange thing about him. He never seemed afraid of quiet. Ethan sat beside him, leaving a few inches of space between them. Close enough to feel different. Far enough to feel safe. I do not want to lose this either, Ethan said. Ryan turned toward him. The apartment? The apartment is overpriced and the dishwasher sounds haunted. Fair. Ethan took a breath. I mean us. Whatever us means right now. Ryan's eyes stayed on his face. I do not know what it means. Neither do I. That is not very reassuring. I am trying something new called honesty. Ryan smiled. How is it going? Terribly. They sat there for another moment. Then Ryan slowly placed one hand on the cushion between them, palm open. He did not say anything. Ethan looked at it. Such a small gesture. Ridiculous, really, that something so simple could make his heart beat faster than an entire day of panic. He glanced at Ryan. Is this another terrifying honesty exercise? Only if you want it to be. Ethan looked back at Ryan's hand. Then he placed his own in it. Ryan's fingers closed gently around his. No rush. No grand declaration. Just warmth. Ethan let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Okay, he whispered. Ryan's thumb moved once across his knuckles. Okay. Ethan nodded. I think this part is going better. Ryan laughed softly. Their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. The apartment remained quiet around them, but the silence no longer felt dangerous. Ethan turned his head and found Ryan already looking at him. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan asked, very quietly, Can I kiss you? Ethan's first instinct was to make a joke. His second was to hide. Instead, he squeezed Ryan's hand and smiled. Yes. Ryan leaned in slowly, giving Ethan every chance to change his mind. Ethan did not. The kiss was brief, gentle, and almost shy, which somehow made it feel more real than anything Ethan had imagined. When they pulled apart, Ryan rested his forehead lightly against Ethan's. Ethan smiled before he could stop himself. You know, he murmured, for someone who picked me as a roommate because he liked me, you took an impressively long time to get here. Ryan laughed. You are never letting that go, are you? Absolutely not. The next morning, Ethan woke up on the couch with a stiff neck, one sock missing, and Ryan's hand still loosely wrapped around his. For several seconds, Ethan stared at the ceiling and tried to understand why the apartment felt different. Then Ryan shifted beside him, and memory returned all at once. The confession, the hand-holding, the kiss. Ethan turned his head slowly. Ryan was still asleep, leaning against the opposite end of the couch, his hair completely ruined and his expression unusually peaceful. Ethan smiled before he could stop himself. Then Ryan opened one eye. You are staring. Ethan looked away immediately. I am observing. That sounds worse. I am collecting data. For what? Science. Ryan laughed, quiet and sleepy. Ethan decided he liked that sound far too much. They sat there for another minute, neither of them rushing to move, until the smell of stale coffee reminded Ethan that civilization required effort. Ryan stood first. Breakfast. Ethan followed him into the kitchen. Only if the toaster behaves. You know it is an appliance, right? That is exactly what it wants you to think. Ryan shook his head and started making pancakes while Ethan leaned against the counter, watching him with absolutely no attempt to pretend otherwise. That was new. Strange, but good. Ryan noticed. What? Nothing. You are doing it again. Doing what? Observing. Ethan grinned. I have 8 months of lost time to make up for. Ryan nearly dropped the spatula. Ethan laughed so hard he had to cover his mouth. Oh, this is incredible. You are enjoying this too much. I spent most of yesterday believing you were moving out because of me. I deserve something. Ryan set a plate on the table. You deserve breakfast. Ethan looked down. Pancakes. Blueberries. Coffee exactly the way he liked it. The same breakfast Ryan might have made any other morning. Somehow that was what made Ethan's chest feel warm. Nothing had changed, and everything had. He sat down. Ryan took the chair across from him, then hesitated. So what happens now? Ethan looked up. That is an alarming question before syrup. I mean us. Still alarming. Ryan smiled. Do we call this dating? Ethan considered it. I think we should establish some ground rules first. Of course you do. Rule 1, no. Pretending to be casual when you are secretly choosing roommates because you have a crush. Ryan covered his face. I knew that was coming. Rule 2. If you are going on an actual date, you tell me. Ryan lowered his hands. With you? Ethan paused. That was smooth. Thank you. Suspiciously smooth. I have had 8 months to practice. Ethan tried not to smile. Failed completely. Fine. Yes. With me. Ryan nodded as if they had just finalized an important contract. Friday. Friday works. Dinner. Yes. 7. You are scheduling this like a dentist appointment. I am nervous. Ethan blinked. Ryan said it so simply that it caught him off guard. Still. Ryan looked at him. Yes. This matters. There it was again. That quiet honesty. Ethan reached across the table and placed his hand over Ryan's. Good, he said. I am nervous too. Ryan turned his hand beneath Ethan's until their fingers fit together. Outside, the morning traffic moved through the city exactly as it always did. Inside, the same 2 coffee mugs sat beside the same scratch table. Claire's suitcase still waited by the door to be delivered. Ethan's jacket still hung crookedly from the chair. Ryan had still left the kitchen light on from the night before. The apartment had not transformed into anything magical. It was still too expensive, slightly drafty, and equipped with one deeply suspicious toaster. But Ethan finally understood why it felt different. Home was not the rooms. It was not the furniture or the lease or the view from 12 floors up. It was Ryan remembering his coffee. Ryan waiting for him after late workdays. Ryan laughing at jokes that were not funny. Ryan being afraid and staying anyway. Ethan squeezed his hand. You know, he said, I spent 8 months trying not to fall for my roommate. Ryan smiled. How did that go? Ethan looked at him across the table. Terribly. Ryan leaned closer and kissed his forehead, gentle and familiar already. Ethan laughed. And you are still not getting out of rule 1. I figured. 2 mugs. 2 plates. 2 hands resting together between them. Same apartment. Different world.